This is part 2 of the lecture on the Urusov Gambit, and I got a game here that was played in 1972. It was a correspondence game between, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right, but Laes and Zitterio. So a pretty old game, but shows some interesting lines in the Urusov Gambit. And so the game started e4, e5, bishop c4, knight f6, d4 takes, knight f3 and takes. So this is the main starting position that you'll have to be familiar with. And so after you take with the queen on d4, generally knight f6 is played, but there might be some alternatives here. Let's say knight c5 is played. So black just figures, okay, the knight's defended by dark squared bishop and should be fine. So bishop g5 is an important move that you should know. So we continue just like in the main line, even though there's no knight on f6. So the queen's attacked, and f6 could be played, but then bishop just drops back to e3, and so after a move like c6, knight c3, d5, let's say, we just castle. Just like in the main line, we can castle on the queen side, and black can never really take this bishop's on c4 because of the threats on d8. So for example, bishop e7, queen h4, knight to d7 here, takes on d5. Always look for that sacrifice on d5. You can usually sacrifice a knight on d5, and it's good in these type of lines. After c takes d5, queen h5 check. Important little in-between move, targeting this pawn. And after g6, queen takes d5. You can see white has a much better position, and there's always these enduring threats on f7 square. So we'll look at, instead of blocking with the knight here, what about if black just castles? Here we can take on d5 here, takes on d5, rook takes d5, hitting the queen, and you can see there's a threat on this knight on c5, and the only way that black can get his queen out of danger and still defend this knight the correct number of times is queen c7, but unfortunately it fails tactically to rook takes c5 check, right? The discovered attack on the queen, hitting the queen also. So those lines don't really work so well. And we mentioned f6 here, but what about bishop e7 instead? Well, now we go queen takes g7 here. You can already tell black has a better position here, you know, and if the bishop ever takes, then the knight just, well, if the bishop takes, then we take the rook. So it's pretty much a better position there for us. And let's consider knight c6 move here, just ignoring the threat to the queen and counterattacking the other queen. Now we have a good move. Bishop takes f7, exclaim. King takes f7, queen f4 check, king g8 for example. We're just taking the queen here. It doesn't matter where the king moves. So those lines are all very nice for white. And so I wanted to go back to this position where knight f6 could be played. We looked at knight c5, but let's consider knight d6. Well, we could castle. Let's say knight c6 was played, attacking the queen, rook e1 check. Knight to e7 here, bishop b3. So now our pieces are positioned nicely. F6, queen d5, g5 for example. Knight just takes on g5. We sacrifice the knight, and you can see we have a lot going on those two squares. h6, not even moving the bishop, but getting another piece into play. So the rook moves, but let's say he took on g5 instead. Knight e4, bishop g7. We're just better. If the knight would take instead, what would you play? What's wrong with this? I'll give you a couple seconds. And you should have found queen f7 mate. So, and if we move like bishop g7 here, now we can take that defender out and just mate on f7. So big problems here. So that's why normally you don't get knight d6 here or knight c5. And let's worry about the main line, knight f6 now. After bishop g5, bishop e7, this is what happened in the game. And in the last game we saw c6 and d5 was played early. In this game, after knight c3, black played knight c6, hitting the queen. And after queen h4, simply d5, we castle long. So that's a big theme. Whenever black plays d5, we always want to castle on the queen side in these variations. And bishop e6, for example, is always met by rook he1. This is very thematic here. Black can never really take. Castle on the king side here. But we'll look at a little bit of sidelines here. What about a move like h6? Well, we just take on f6, and bishop takes f6 here. Now queen h5. So bishop takes, for example, on c3. Is there a problem with castling? Well, we just take on d5 with the knight. Again, we have this nice knight move. So bishop takes c3, takes the knight out. But now we just have this rook sacrifice. Rook takes e6, exclam. King f8. And now rook takes d5 here. Is very good. Queen c8, rook takes on c6. Another very good move. g6 was played in one game, but why not b takes c6? Because a rook d8 check takes that rook. Well, it just checkmate. So that's why g6. But now rook takes on g6. Another great sacrifice here. F takes. Queen takes on g6. So you can see there's a lot of threats looming here. And queen e8. Rook f5. Check. King e7. Queen e6. King d8. Rook d5 check. And enough said. It's basically game over. Because black has no choice but to be mated in two in this position. So we'll go back to the main variation after castle, bishop d3. That's what happened in the actual game. h6 was played, and now just king b1. Now knight e8 was played in the game, but I want to quickly look at what happens if this bishop is taken. Knight takes g5, bishop d7. Otherwise, we were going to sacrifice that rook, and then knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, we're mating, and if he didn't take, then we would be threatening to take the knight, followed by the mate on h7. So that's all very nice. We'll look at one more sideline, queen d7. Now we go for a sacrifice on h6, and clearly you can't really take this and allow the queen to get to h6. So we move back, and even after in a position like this, we just have too many threats on the board, and that's why knight e8 was played in the game. So we go exchange the bishops, exchange queens, and we go knight d4, and we just take on e6 twice. Yes, black maintains some material here, but after knight takes d5, rook takes g2. And by the way, if rook d8, the plan was just to double, but after rook takes g2, bishop c4, king h8, getting out of tactics. A lot of tactics going on this diagonal here. So rook d1, knight e6, knight takes c7. This is what happened in the game. Rook d8, bishop d3, king g8, bishop g6, and actually he resigned there. Black resigned in this position because well, there's just a lot of threats of taking out this knight, followed by mating sequence, and it looks really bad. You know, is black going to have to sacrifice the rook? But it looks bad. Even though it looks bad to the naked eye, the computer actually found a really good move here, which was knight e7. You can play on with knight e7. It looks like, okay, this piece is not defended, but this is being hit also. So if rook takes the knight, then rook takes here, and the best white can really do here is just retreat the bishop, go to bishop d3, and then the knight would have to move now. But since the knight is actually defended by the other knight, we'd have to put more pressure on and force black to play g6. And this position is still probably a little bit better for white, but it's nothing special. It's nothing major, and really black resigned way too early in that position. Let's recap a little bit. So this is a position that we should be very familiar with here, and just be very mindful of the plan with c6 and d5. Generally the bishop goes to e7, and in this game knight c6 was played instead of c6. And remember, h4 is the ideal location for our queen. Normally we're attacking on the king side here, and whenever d5 is played in the last game and in this game, we're going to castle on the queen side, and always delay moving that bishop until until it's really necessary. And generally, after black castles, the bishop has to drop back to d3. This is really one of the focal points of the attack. And after h6, remember that we don't really have to take. We don't have to take because then the knight's just retaking here, and you know we have a lot of threats. We have 3 pieces attacking on the h7 square, and this knight sacrifice. Remember, deflecting the knight on f6, so we can mate on h7. Remember that trick. So yeah, aside from that, what happened in the game was very typical of what will happen, what could happen in your games online, and it's very white had such an overwhelming looking position that black resigned in a position that was actually close to even according to the computer. So thank you.